Hello, darling. It's Rose. And I'll tell you something I never thought I'd admit, not even to myself. I spent Christmas alone in an empty house after my only son told me there was no room for me. He didn't say it quite like that, of course. He dressed it up in polite words and fake warmth, the way people do when they want to sound kind while shoving you out the door. But I heard what he meant. I heard it clear as sleigh bells. It started with a phone call that came late. Too late, really, for it to be casual. A few days before Christmas Eve. I was stirring cinnamon into my tea when the phone rang. I remember that detail because the smell of cinnamon stayed with me, even as everything else fell apart. "Hi, Mom," he said, and right away I knew something was wrong. "You know how a mother just knows?" "I just wanted to talk to you about the holidays," yet he said. I set my mug down. "Of course, I've got the cranberry relish made already, and I was thinking I'd bring the turkey this year to make it easier for Rachel." He cut me off, gently, too gently. "About that. Mom, we've been thinking it's going to be kind of packed this year. Rachel's parents are flying in, and we've got the kids' friends staying over, and honestly, we don't really have the space." I didn't say anything. I was afraid if I spoke, my voice might crack. "So," he continued, "we thought maybe this year you could just take it easy. Do your own thing." My own thing. Christmas. Alone. I cleared my throat. "You mean you don't want me to come?" A pause. A long one. "It's not that we don't want you, Mom. It's just we're really full up. You understand, right?" I didn't, not at all, but I said, "Of course." Because what else was there to say? The silence that followed was the kind that settles into your bones. Heavy. Permanent. Like the way snow muffles everything, turns the world into a kind of tomb. After we hung up, I sat there staring at the tea I never got to drink. The cinnamon had gone bitter. I drank it anyway. That night, I pulled the Christmas decorations down from the attic. The boxes were dusty, corners softened with time. George used to carry them down for me years ago before his heart gave out one December afternoon shoveling the walkway. That was the year I started coming to David's for the holidays. Every year since, without fail. Until now. I opened the smallest box first. The ornaments. The paper ones David made in preschool, bent and faded. The glass bell from our first Christmas in the house. The angel topper with one wing slightly crooked. I laid them out on the coffee table like artifacts from a lost civilization. And I did the thing you're never supposed to do at Christmas. I wept. Not politely. Not in that delicate, tear-dabbing way of women who are still hoping to be loved. No. I cried like a woman who finally realized she had been left behind. It wasn't about the turkey or the gifts or even the tree. It was the space. The so-called lack of room. The carefully constructed polite rejection. Because there's always room for the people you truly want. And I knew in that moment, I wasn't one of them anymore. I was furniture. I was tradition. I was clutter. And clutter gets put in the attic. I didn't decorate that night. I couldn't. The lights stayed tangled in the box. The wreath sat on the table like a question I didn't know how to answer. Instead, I went upstairs and stood by the window watching the snow fall over the front walk. It was quiet and it was cold. And for the first time in my life, I wondered what it would be like to just disappear, not die, not in some dramatic fashion, just vanish. No room for me, no space, no place at the table. I looked at the chair where George used to sit, at the plate I always laid out for David, at the stocking that still had his name on it in red felt. And I asked the empty house, where did I go wrong? The house said nothing. It never did. But the silence answered me anyway. And that was how I found myself spending Christmas morning in a robe that smelled like cedar and a kitchen that smelled like nothing at all. I boiled water for tea I didn't want and cracked an egg I didn't eat. The only sound was the faint tick of the old wall clock, counting down the minutes of a day that used to mean something. That was when I saw it. A card slipped through the mail slot sometime during the night. My name, in careful handwriting. I opened it, fingers trembling just slightly, and what I found inside made my breath catch in my throat. The card said, "Thinking of you this Christmas." Nora, my granddaughter, 17 years old, sharp as a whip and kind, in ways her mother never quite understood. The envelope had a second piece of paper folded inside, a little note in her handwriting. Mom said you weren't coming this year. I thought that was weird. So I'm dropping this off in case you wanted to talk. I'm around. I'm always around. Love you. I read it 3 times. 4, I held it like it might dissolve in my hand if I wasn't careful. Nora, the only one who had noticed the quiet. The truth is, it hadn't started with Christmas. Not really. The drift had been happening for years, like land slowly sliding into the sea. At first, it was small things, phone calls that went unanswered, Rachel's tight smiles, fewer invitations, plans that always seemed to be set already. It's like watching your name disappear from a guest list, letter by letter. I kept showing up anyway. With pies, with presents, with stories from my younger years they barely pretended to laugh at. I thought if I could just stay useful, I'd stay welcome. I'd always believed motherhood was a lifetime membership. You pay the dues. Sleepless nights, forgotten dreams, silent sacrifices, and in return you get to stay. But no one tells you what happens when your usefulness expires. I wasn't angry, not at first. I was embarrassed. I kept thinking, what did I do? Was I too opinionated? Too present? Too much? And then that question, the cruelest one. Was I not enough? I used to be his whole world. I remember the way he'd climb into my lap, sticky with jam, and call me mama like it was the most natural word in the world. I remember staying up with him through fevers, cheering from the bleachers, driving him to every practice, every date, every heartbreak. Now there was no room for me, not even at the table. I walked into the living room and stood in front of the boxes of decorations. I hadn't touched them since that phone call. I stared at them like they were old letters from a life I couldn't read anymore. Then I sat on the floor, right there on the hardwood, in my robe. The sun just starting to spill through the window, casting golden stripes across the carpet like bars in a cage. And I did what no one ever expects a woman like me to do. I started asking myself the hard questions. What if they didn't forget me? What if they erased me on purpose? What if the story I'd always believed, that I was part of a family, that I had a place, was something I told myself to feel safe? You see, darling, we get so good at telling ourselves we're okay. We wrap ourselves in the stories of service, of love, of legacy. We think if we just keep being generous, keep being kind, keep being small, they'll keep a seat for us. But sometimes love doesn't mean loyalty. Sometimes family doesn't mean inclusion. Sometimes you are the Christmas decoration, taken down, dusted off once a year, and packed away again when you've served your purpose. I sat there a long time, staring at the ornament with David's kindergarten photo inside, his little round cheeks, that crooked grin. I touched the edge of the photo, a fingerprint across time, and I whispered, I don't know who you are anymore. Because the boy I raised would never have left me alone on Christmas. But the man he became did. Later that morning, I poured myself another cup of tea. No cinnamon this time. Just black, strong, like I used to drink before I learned to soften everything for someone else. I picked up the phone, not to call David. No, I didn't have the energy to perform that script again. I called someone else, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Margot. She picked up on the second ring. Rose, that voice. I'd forgotten the sound of someone who once knew me as more than a mother. Yes, I said. It's Rose. There was a pause, then warmth. Oh my God, it's been what, 10 years? Closer to 15, I said, surprised by the lump in my throat. I think I finally got tired of being quiet. I told her everything, not all at once, but enough. The Christmas, the call, the way silence can scream when it comes from the people you love. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. And when I was done, she said the simplest, truest thing anyone had said to me in years. That's not love, Rosie. That's management. And I felt something crack open. Because I'd been managed, hadn't I? Dosed with polite distance, soothed with excuses, shelved like a keepsake that doesn't fit the modern decor. We talked for nearly an hour, laughed a little, cried a bit more, And when I hung up, I felt it. The tiniest flicker of warmth in the cold hearth of my chest. I still had my voice. And somewhere, I still had my fire. Nora messaged me later that afternoon. I'm walking over. Is that okay? I typed back before I could think myself out of it. More than okay. I'd love to see you. And that night, I set 2 places at the table. There were no lights on the house, no tree in the corner, no wrapping paper, no presents. But there was warmth, and there was honesty. And there was a girl with her grandmother eating soup out of mismatched bowls, laughing about the way people who think they have everything often miss what really matters. And just as we were finishing dessert, apple slices, nothing fancy, she said something that made my hands tremble. Mom said it was your choice not to come. I blinked. She said that? Nora nodded. Said you didn't feel up to it. That you decided to stay home this year. My spoon clinked against the empty bowl, and the air between us changed. Because the truth wasn't just inconvenient now, the truth had been rewritten. And I knew in that moment, this wasn't just about Christmas. Something deeper was being hidden, and I was going to find out what. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was sad, though I was, but because of something colder, something sharper, suspicion. Nora's words rang in my ears like an echo that wouldn't fade. Mom said it was your choice not to come. I kept turning it over in my mind, examining it like a piece of glass in the light. It didn't fit. David would have known it wasn't true, wouldn't he? Unless it hadn't come from him. Unless Rachel had said it for me, spoken in my name, told my granddaughter a fiction so smooth it felt like truth. And David let her. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I took out the binder, the one I kept in the top drawer of my old writing desk, hidden behind half-used stamps and receipts I never filed. The one labeled simply household. Inside were records, financial mostly, a meticulous collection of notes I kept about my modest but well-managed life. Utility bills, property tax letters, my pension statements. But as I turned the pages, I came to a section I hadn't looked at in over a year. Transfers to David, to Rachel. I stared at the numbers. Monthly deposits. Small at first. Just to help with daycare, David had said. Then there was the car lease. Rachel needs something safe for the kids. Then the kitchen remodel. Then the school fees. Then the second car. I had forgotten how many zeros there were, but what caught me most wasn't the amount. It was the date, December 10th. A week before the phone call, a $5,000 transfer marked Christmas support. I stared at the line until my vision blurred. So, let me understand this. They accepted the money, and then they uninvited me? Or worse, pretended I'd uninvited myself. I stood up, nearly knocking the chair over. I didn't feel sadness anymore. I felt clarity. They didn't forget me. They didn't overlook me. They used me. And when the using got uncomfortable, they rewrote the story to make me the one who vanished. That afternoon, I printed the records, put them in a manila envelope, wrote "For David" on the front in my neatest handwriting. I didn't deliver it right away. I waited. Waited for the sting to settle into something steadier. Waited for the wind to shift from grief to resolve. It didn't take long. 2 days later, a knock came on my door. Not Rachel, not David. Nora. Again. She had a backpack slung over one shoulder and a look on her face that stopped me cold. What is it? I asked. It. She came inside without a word, dropped the bag on the floor, and pulled out her phone. I thought you should see this, she said. It was a screenshot of a group chat, Rachel's side of the family, a thread of messages from Christmas morning. Rachel. No drama this year. Thank God Rose finally decided to stay home. Rachel's mother. Smart move. She's a lot, that one. Rachel. I told David it was time to set boundaries. We're not a retirement center. Rachel's sister. What about her little tradition thing? Rachel. Let her bake her sad little pies for herself. I'm done playing nice. Nora's face was pale. They didn't know I was still in the chat. Mom thinks I muted it. I read it again. Slower. Let her bake her sad little pies. I felt something in me harden, not anger, not quite. Something older, something deeper. A woman can take a lot. She can take distance. She can take forgetting. But mockery? Mockery cuts different. I folded the paper I'd written for David and slid the screenshots into the envelope beside it. I think it's time I paid them a visit, I said. Nora looked up. Do you want me to come? I touched her hand. No, sweetheart, this one's mine. Their house was all twinkle lights and symmetry, like a catalog spread. Everything in its place. Except perhaps me. David answered the door in a sweater that cost more than my whole outfit. He looked surprised, then guilty. Mom? I held up the envelope. I thought it was time we had a real conversation. He stepped aside. Rachel was in the kitchen, laughing at something on her phone. When she looked up and saw me, her face tightened like a drawstring bag. Rose, she said flatly, we weren't expecting you. No, I said, setting the envelope on the kitchen island. I imagine you weren't. David opened it. He pulled out the statements, the transfer logs, and last, the screenshots. He read in silence, and I watched it happen, the slow collapse of certainty in his eyes. Rachel reached for the pages. That's out of context. I see, I said. Then maybe you'd like to provide the correct one. She opened her mouth, closed it. David turned to me. Mom? I didn't know. I believed him. I also didn't care. You should have, I said gently. Because it's your job to know. You're my son. I didn't mean for you to be alone. You weren't the one who told me there was no room, I interrupted. But you didn't stop her either. He said nothing. Rachel crossed her arms. So what? You want an apology? I smiled. Oh, no, dear. I don't need anything from you. I just wanted you to see who you really are when no one's watching. She scoffed. We didn't think you'd actually come. That, I said, turning to the door, is what makes this moment so satisfying. I didn't slam the door on the way out. I didn't need to. Sometimes, silence is its own kind of thunder. And as I walked down their perfectly trimmed walkway, snow starting to fall again, I thought, this story is not going to end the way they think it will. Because sometimes the person you erase comes back holding the pen. And I was ready to rewrite everything. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just far enough that the houses started looking unfamiliar, the lawns less manicured, the silence less curated. I needed space. Not from them, I'd already taken that, but from the version of me that had spent so many years shrinking. I pulled over near a park I used to take David to when he was little. The old swings creaked in the cold wind, and for a moment I could almost hear his childhood laugh echo across the empty field. That little boy was gone, and the woman who had bent herself into shapes to keep him comfortable, she was gone too. Back at the house, I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table in the same chair I'd used every morning for the past 30 years. The silence wasn't hollow now, it was mine. Chosen. That night, David called. I let it ring 5 times before answering. Mom, he said softly. I read everything. I know. She shouldn't have said those things. I should have stopped it. Yes. Another silence. This one heavier. It hung between us like a truth we hadn't dared face before. She's angry with me now, he said, for not defending her. She's angry because she got caught, I said, and for once someone told her the truth. He exhaled. What do I do? I didn't offer comfort. I didn't offer solutions. I just said, that's up to you, David. But understand this, I'm not going to disappear again. A pause. Are we okay? He asked. I stared out the window. The snow was falling harder now, covering everything, making it look clean and untouched. We're not broken, I said. But we're not okay. Not yet. He said nothing after that, just breathed. Before we hung up, I added, you're welcome to visit. Alone. When you're ready. I didn't expect him to reply, and he didn't. But 2 days later, he came. No fanfare, no gifts. Just my son, hands in his coat pockets, eyes heavier than I'd seen in years. We sat in the living room in silence. I poured him tea. We drank like strangers, learning each other's rhythms again. And then he said, I don't know when I became the kind of man who let that happen. And I told him the truth. You didn't become him. You allowed him. One little compromise at a time. One she didn't mean it at a time. That's how it always happens. He nodded, slowly, like someone being handed back the map to a place he'd forgotten how to reach. I want to be better, he said. Then start by listening. He did. We talked for hours, not just about Christmas, about the years I'd quietly paid their bills, the conversations Rachel had filtered, the invitations that came too late, or not at all. He didn't deny it. And that, in itself, was something like healing. He told me he'd asked Rachel to leave, temporarily at first. To think, he said. I didn't ask for more. It wasn't my decision. But I did say, the family you build starts with the boundaries you enforce. When he left, he hugged me. Not the way you hug a parent out of obligation, but the way you hug someone you've wronged and who let you begin again anyway. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, I didn't feel like furniture. I felt like me. A week later, I went through the house. I packed up half the old decorations, not in grief, in clarity. I kept only what meant something. The crooked angel, the photo ornament, the lace stocking I made with my own hands. The rest I donated to the women's shelter down the street. Let someone else's story start with those. And I made one more decision. Next Christmas, I'm going away. Somewhere quiet, somewhere snowy. Somewhere I don't need to wait for someone else's invitation to feel welcome. Because I am done performing for people who only applaud when I'm invisible. I told Nora, and she smiled. Can I come? I said, only if you bring the cocoa. And we laughed. Deep, real laughter. The kind you only find at the end of something painful, when you finally exhale and know you survived it. So here I am, darling. In my house, my space, my peace. David still visits. Nora texts every day. Rachel hasn't reached out. I no longer check the mailbox for her. And you know what? This Christmas, I'll light a candle just for me. No pies, no presents, no performance. Just one warm, glowing flame in the middle of winter. And I'll whisper to myself, there's always been room for you here. You just had to stop asking for permission to take it.